It was a Sunday. Her mother always chose Sundays to pick a fight. Something about the quiet made her voice hit harder. We were seated in her formal dining room, the one with the crystal chandelier that made every argument feel like it was happening in a courtroom. She sipped tea, thin-lipped and cold-eyed, and then she said it. Like a verdict. You'll never be good enough for her. I told her that before she married you. Some men are just stepping stones. My wife didn't flinch, didn't defend me, just stirred her tea and said nothing. That was the moment something clicked. I didn't argue, didn't lash out. I just looked at the woman across from me. The same woman whose hospital bills I'd quietly paid last year when her Medicare claim was denied. The same woman whose kitchen remodel I funded without ever putting my name on it. Stepping stone, huh? I stood up, pushed in my chair, and smiled. You're absolutely right, I said. I was a stepping stone. Thanks for the reminder. Then I walked out. Calm. Controlled. Back in the car, I didn't rage. I didn't call my wife. I opened my notes app and added a new file. Operation Shovel. The title was dumb. The intention wasn't. If I'd been a stepping stone, I'd become the ground she'd regret ever walking on. The first step was information. Her mother's house, the same overpriced Victorian she flaunted at dinner parties, was under a mortgage. I knew because I'd helped her set up auto payments from a trust fund my wife had no idea existed. That trust? It was funded by me, set up under a shell corporation 3 years ago as a way to gift her stability while reducing our taxable income. Clever on paper, explosive in context. What she didn't know was that 6 months earlier, she'd defaulted on 2 payments. The trust had been drained, and she never noticed. She thought the money would keep flowing. It didn't. And the bank didn't care about her assumptions. I called my guy, Martin. Real estate acquisitions, discreet and fast. I want you to monitor 3045 Clementine Street, I said. Titles under Geraldine A. Huxley. She's 2 defaults deep. I want first notice when foreclosure hits. Martin didn't ask questions. That's why I paid him. By Thursday, he texted. It's going public Monday. You want it in cash or corp name? Corp, I replied. Use Huron Development. And I want it silent. No flags. No noise. The same day, I visited Geraldine's house under the pretense of dropping off a coat my wife had left. She looked surprised, maybe even smug. Still groveling? She said at the door. I handed her the coat. You should get that leaky pipe under your porch checked. Looks like water damage. Could affect resale. She scoffed. I'm not selling. I nodded. You might be. I turned and left without another word. That night, I told my wife I had a late meeting. She didn't ask questions. We hadn't really spoken since Sunday. Her silence was approval, passive, indifferent. She'd chosen a side without saying it out loud. I used the time to wire the down payment. Friday, I met with a contractor and a locksmith. Monday morning, the purchase went through. Huron Development officially owned 3045 Clementine Street. I held the keys before she even knew the house wasn't hers anymore. I didn't go there. Not yet. I waited. Timing mattered. Tuesday morning, I got the text I was waiting for. From my lawyer. She called the bank. Asked what the hell was going on. They told her it's no longer her property. She's demanding answers. Wednesday, I showed up at her door. Alone. Dressed for court, not revenge. She answered in a robe, curlers in her hair. What do you want? To talk, I said, stepping past her before she could refuse. About eviction. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me. You defaulted. The trust dried up. Your bank foreclosed. I bought the house. It's mine now. You're bluffing. I handed her the paperwork. Signed, sealed, filed. Her face lost color by the second. You can't do this. I have rights. You had rights, I corrected. But here's the thing. I'm not throwing you out. I'm giving you 30 days to relocate. I'll even cover moving expenses. Generous, considering what you said to me. You're sick. No, I said, walking toward the front door. I'm just a stepping stone. And you just stepped off. The door closed behind me with a soft click. Later that evening, I walked into our apartment. My wife was seated on the couch, glass of wine in hand, oblivious. How was work? She asked. I looked at her for a long second, then said, Your mom's moving. Thought you'd want to know. She blinked. What? She defaulted. I bought the house. It's mine now. You're joking. No. She's got 30 days. I gave her a generous deal. Wouldn't want her to end up somewhere, beneath her. My wife stared at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. I grabbed a beer, sat down, and turned on the TV. Next time she says I'm not good enough, I said without looking at her, she can say it from a rental. The silence between us said everything else. She came home 3 days later with that forced calm people wear right before they detonate. Her heels clicked across the tile like a warning shot, purse tossed too hard on the kitchen island. You bought her house, she said. Not a question. A verdict. I didn't pause the TV. I did. Why? I muted the screen. Turned to face her. Because she said I'd never be good enough for you. And you didn't disagree. She blinked, but only for a second. You embarrassed her. No, I said, standing. She embarrassed herself. I just made sure she remembered it. The argument didn't last long. She knew better than to defend her mother openly. But the air between us shifted. Colder. More tactical. Something had cracked beneath the surface. By the following week, Geraldine was gone. I didn't evict her personally. I sent Martin. He showed up with movers, paperwork, and a check for relocation expenses. Clean. Efficient. Geraldine didn't thank me. But she didn't resist, either. Pride dies fast when foreclosure makes it real. She moved into a 2-bedroom condo across town. Not upscale. Not horrible. Just average. And for a woman like her, average was a death sentence. I assumed that would be the end of it. But Geraldine wasn't done. She started showing up. Not at the house. She knew better. But in conversations, in text threads, in passive-aggressive comments my wife made over dinner. She's not sleeping well. She says her back hurts in the new place. She's been depressed. You really think this was necessary? I didn't answer, but I took note. Every statement wasn't about concern. It was a test. Seeing how far she could push before I cracked. I didn't. I waited. That weekend, I made my move. I had Martin list the house, her mother's former home, under a new alias. No pictures. Private listing. One buyer only. Then I reached out to the buyer, a mid-tier developer who specialized in heritage conversions. His specialty? Gutting historic homes and turning them into high-end duplexes. The paperwork was quick. The demo permit approved by Wednesday. By Friday, Geraldine's old house had fencing around it, and a sign out front read, "Coming soon. The Huxley Lofts. Modern living inside history." My wife saw the sign on her way to brunch. She didn't speak for hours after. But Geraldine called. Loud. Angry. "You son of a... How dare you tear down my home?" "It wasn't your home," I said calmly. "And you dared me first." Click. I knew what would come next. The backlash. The social circle. Her friends. Her little empire of passive-aggressive martini moms who would rally behind her with sympathy and outrage. I didn't care. I'd already checked them off the list months ago. What I didn't expect was for my wife to turn cold. She didn't leave. She didn't scream. She just stopped talking. That night, she slept in the guest room. The next morning, she served herself breakfast and walked out the door without saying a word. When I checked her phone, and yes, I did, there were messages to her mother. One said, "I think he's going too far." Another, "I don't know who he is anymore." That was fine. I didn't know who she was either. But here's the twist. While everyone was watching the drama between me and Geraldine, no one noticed the quiet little transaction I made the same week. A purchase of a small, bankrupt publishing firm called Moonbay Press. The reason? Geraldine had been quietly working on a memoir. Her truth, as she called it. A revenge piece disguised as reflection. I'd found the manuscript months ago on her laptop when I was setting up her email during the kitchen remodel. It was venom in hardcover form. She had a deal pending with Moonbay. And now, Moonbay belonged to me. 2 days after the Huxley Loft sign went up, she got an email. "Moonbay Press regrets to inform you that your manuscript will no longer be published under our label. Rights have been transferred to a third party. Future use prohibited under contract clause 4A. She called again. "You bought the publisher?" "Yes." "You can't do that." "I just did." "You're obsessed. This is sick." "No," I said. "This is closure." Click. I walked into the living room and poured myself a drink. My wife stood in the doorway. She'd been listening. "You're destroying everything," she said. Quiet. Not angry. Just tired. "No," I said. "I'm cleaning house." She looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe she married someone easier, quieter, someone who would keep taking the punches as long as she smiled afterward. But that man was gone. Replaced. By someone who didn't play defense anymore. 2 weeks after the demolition started, I came home to find the guest room empty and her closet half cleared. No note. Just silence. The kind that isn't confused or scared, but calculated. She didn't leave me because she was broken. She left because she thought she could still win. It wasn't a divorce filing. It was a shift in strategy. A few hours later, a text came through from her attorney. Friendly tone, formal content. We're requesting a preliminary meeting to discuss equitable separation terms. I didn't reply. Not because I was shocked. I wasn't. But because they thought I'd play by the same rules. Equitable? Let's rewind. Over the past 6 years, I built my business from a small software consultancy into a licensing powerhouse. All under the umbrella of minor corporations, all feeding into trusts and vehicles that didn't have my name directly attached. She thought we shared wealth. What we shared was appearance. What she had was a fraction, the condo, the car, some liquid funds. What I had was layered under years of calculated planning. Asset protection disguised as expansion. You don't build walls after the attack. You build them during peace, quietly, brick by brick. I met her lawyer the following week. Her side had a proposal. Condo goes to her. Joint account split. A portion of future royalties. Spousal support. A generous cut, they said, in recognition of the lifestyle she was accustomed to. I didn't speak much. Just handed them a folder. Inside, 3 signed post-nuptial amendments. Each notarized. Each buried inside other agreements she'd never bothered to read. One was during a home refi, another during a boutique investment she begged me to fund. The third, my favorite, was from a shared estate planning session where she smiled through the paperwork and asked if I brought wine for the notary. Each clause limited her claim, capped her alimony, declared all business assets separate by structure and law. The room went silent. Her lawyer flipped pages, eyes twitching. I need time to review this. Take all the time you want, I said. It's not urgent. Just overdue. That night, she called. First time in days. You planned this. No, I said. You did. The day you decided silence was safer than loyalty. She didn't deny it. Instead, she asked, what do you want? I could have answered with anger. I didn't. I want out, I said. And I want the truth to come with me. She didn't reply, but I knew what that meant. Leverage. Image. Reputation. She thought I'd ruin her. I didn't have to. Her silence was already doing that. Over the next month, she moved out. Quietly. No drama. No police. No Instagram stories. Just vanished from our life like a chapter closed mid-sentence. I finalized the sale of Geraldine's old lot the same week. Demolition finished. Framing started. The Huxley Lofts project was ahead of schedule, and the pre-orders were rolling in. The developer invited me to a launch brunch. I declined. Some victories don't need audiences. 2 months later, I read a news brief. Geraldine had taken a reverse mortgage on her condo, likely to cover legal fees. Or therapy. Or both. My ex-wife took a job at a PR firm downtown. Lower salary. No trust fund. No Bentley. Just her name on a cubicle and a half-used bottle of dry shampoo. Someone told me she started dating again. An architect. Nice guy. Safe. Predictable. The kind of man her mother probably approved of now, because that's all she could get. I didn't hate her. Not anymore. Hate requires energy. She didn't deserve that. What she deserved was this, the absence of me. A year after it all ended, I stood across the street from where the Huxley house once stood. Now it was glass and steel, modern lines and rooftop terraces. A new beginning for someone else. Not me. I'd already moved on. A new city. New business. A quieter life. I didn't chase the noise anymore. I didn't need anyone's approval. Especially not hers. People say revenge is poison. Maybe. But mine wasn't. Mine was architectural. Structural. Slow. They told me I'd never be good enough. And now? They rent space on land I used to throw shovels of dirt on. That's not revenge. That's poetry written in deeds and contracts. That's legacy.